I guess I would like to know, you said that everybody needs to pray and you're all the 5 times. I live just down from Hudel, I think that's how you say it.
El-Huda.
Yeah, okay, El-Huda.
On Edgerton.
Right,
That's
and
a
on
small-
Fridays at noon, I mean, it's hysterical with cars,
Yeah.
which is fine, I mean, it doesn't bother, they've got that right. But it's all men.
No,
It's not
that's-
women, I don't see women coming
Yeah, you
there.
probably don't see them, but they are there. They are there. El-Huda is a bit more conservative. Many of them are South Asian. And so they have the men entering from one entrance and the women entering. Actually, the men enter from the back entrance and the women are entering from the front entrance. So because it's not a very large space, you know, and it's in a more residential area. I was actually surprised that was zoned as a you know, a place for a church or a mosque. It had been, I think, a Jehovah's Witness site before.
Who didn't have very many cars.
Right. Yeah. I think. I don't know if I should say that. I think they were all knocking on doors.
Yeah, so you're saying that the men and women come to the same place?
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
And they pray together?
Yes, they do. And in fact, although I'm, and we don't have within the Muslim community, we don't have like the, how can I say, like the divisions. We have Sunni Shia, but even within the ISM, we have Shias, although the majority are Sunni. In many of the mosques, wherever you happen to be, you can go and pray. So it's not a membership-based kind of thing. You just happen to go, you can go there. In fact, although I tend to go to the ISM on 13th and Layton, but El-Huda had a great camp for teenagers. So I sent my boys to that, and they had a lot of fun. And they went, I forgot where they went. They went a couple of hours away. And so they tend to be a bit more conservative, mainly in their dress, you know, but they're pretty funny people. They're great people to be around.
Yes,
too.
yes,
Yeah.
they have a picnic, in fact, it's gonna be Saturday.
Yeah, they're
For the
real big
neighborhood
at
and
doing
stuff like
stuff,
that.
yeah.
But it's just because, I guess I was under the impression that it's only the men that had.
Could
No,
we
no,
take
5
more
times.
questions, please?
Yeah.
Oh, you got your hand? Religion, we know that there's a lot of interpretations, and as you know, Christians, you know, we have a lot of interpretations wherever through time. Can you explain slavery? Because I know that Muslims were the first to have slavery in 700 AD, but the equality, you know, the part about the equality really struck me. And is this something, or can you explain that?
That's a good question. I actually, about a week ago, I gave a talk because of the New York Times article about ISIS resuming this practice of slavery. No, actually slavery was from the beginning of time. The Israelites were slaves under Pharaoh. There were throughout history, since the beginning of time, slavery existed. So Islam came into societies that were already practicing slavery. So they did not start slavery. On the contrary, prior to Islam, slavery was based on economics. It was based on color. It was based on people would raid places and pick up people. There was just nothing that you know was off limits when it came to slavery. So Islam started by limiting that, by saying that, okay, the only time you can take slaves are in 2 instances. The first instance is if it's a situation of war and you, let's say, you know, these are people you fought, so you take them because, you know, unfortunately at that time, they didn't have places like Wapan and all these different, you know, things. I mean, if you were taken as a prisoner of war, either you were killed or you were put as a slave. That was just the society that had been since the beginning of time. And then Islam also said the only second reason that you could have, you would be a slave is if you are born to both parents who are slaves. But if, let's say, you take a woman and she's a slave and she becomes your concubine or whatever, because at that time, that's basically what everybody did. If she has a child, well, that child has to be free. And then if that child is free, how are you going to keep the mom as a slave? Which means that both of them are free. It also sets some really, really specific guidelines for the treatment of slaves. And then now there are so many verses within the Quran and within the practice of the Prophet that say things that the greatest thing you can do in the sight of God is free a slave. And so it was actually Islam that started the system of ending slavery. And so whatever ISIS is doing now, nobody agrees with them. And if you actually go to this, it's called, I think, Refuting ISIS by 120 Muslim scholars in the world. They go through their arguments and they talk about the fact that Islam was notable in ending slavery. And you know what? I mean, what were the millions of Africans that were brought, 40% of them Muslims actually, to the United States?
Yeah, no, I was referring to racial color.
Yeah,
So
actually Islam
700,
didn't have that.
It seemed like it was started, and this is the history I was reading, that 700, they started with racial, where the Europeans didn't start until 1400.
No, actually no. Within Islam, it was never racial. In fact, it was always as far as like wars and who you then got as slaves. And it was mainly Arabs enslaving Arabs because they were all within that region. They didn't expand until actually way after the death of the Prophet.
Actually, the gentleman in the gray shirt in front of Dwayne had his hand up first.
Oh.
Did you still have a question?
Me?
The gentleman in front of you.
Yeah.
You had your hand up
Jared.
earlier.
Jared, did you have a question?
Well, I could come up with one, yeah.
No.
No, really, well, I have a question. With all the refugees flowing out of Syria and Iraq, and they're all going, seems like they're all going to Europe. There's a lot of Muslim countries there in that area, but I'm sure they're not the same brand of Muslim that you're talking about, or Islam.
Actually, they are.
Okay, they are, okay. I know Jordan has taken a lot of them.
Turkey has taken 2 million, Jordan has taken over 600,000,
Yeah.
Lebanon
Okay.
has taken like 1 million. All of these surrounding areas have taken tons of them. Unfortunately, what hasn't happened is the Gulf states have taken 0, and they're the ones that can afford it. These actually surrounding areas cannot afford it, and that's unacceptable. But you can't force them, but they have spent billions of dollars helping the refugees, but still, these refugees need to be resettled.
Okay.
Dwayne?
So was there a follow-up? They're heading to Europe because they're trying to find jobs because they're sitting, I mean, imagine some place like Jordan that's total population, now you just added a whole fourth of the population.
Yeah.
What kind of jobs are there? They're
Well,
nothing.
I heard that in Lebanon, though, that they're really taking advantage of the refugees by charging them. They're pretty much taking everything they have.
There's always going to be these,
Yeah.
loan sharks and all these
Yeah.
idiots that take advantage of that
Okay.
stuff.
Oh, God, it's worse than that.
Well, my vision is that you have one human family under one God. You can't have a God that would be the God of a part of the human population. That's absurd. You have one God
So it's
we need to
pretty
look. We
close
need to
being
look
Muslim.
higher, so that we can see that all these different religions are really different ways to envision one family.
Absolutely, and I think that's what the verses from the Quran really describe is that God sent these messengers and these prophets, and not a single community was left without guidance. But each came at a certain time and a certain level of development of people in that particular place, in that particular society. But that doesn't change. I mean, maybe they had certain things within their scripture that differed a bit here or differed a bit there. But the core is the same. The belief in one God, the caring for your neighbor, the caring for the orphans. I always think about, interest. Well, gosh, that's one of the commandments of not taking interest and not joining anyone with God. These are the commandments. And so these are the things that the Muslims that Muslims believe in. So we agree the same way. We believe that it is one humanity. And the Quran actually has ayahs or verses that talk about, your father Adam and your mother Hawa or Eve. Basically, you all came from the same entity.
I have a question because I think in all the chaos that's going on, And this idea that it's religion, it really isn't about religion, it's about power and corruption of
It's
power.
absolutely not about religion, but you know.
But this
when-
is always tossed out, you know, like the ISIS attack. And I think about that, it's just all power and corruption of power. And until that's understood, it's gonna continue.
Right, it's absolutely not about religion, but I think that, I think that unfortunately it's here in the West, a lot of the media, a lot of the talking heads, a lot of
Yes,
these
absolutely.
political figures
Absolutely.
that want to make it a Muslim-Christian
Yes.
issue.
Yes.
Because, you know, I always say that if we made it just a political issue and we gave examples of, you know, Muslims that, you know, it had to take after 4 years to see a regular little 3-year-old child
Yeah.
face down for the
Yes.
world to say,
Yes.
oh my God, that's horrible.
Yes.
You know what?
Yes.
How many hundreds of thousands have already died and how many thousands have already drowned? But the thing is, there's too much within the media that has been showing us kind of a division. And we are built on a power, unfortunately, that if the people that we are fighting against are made to look human, that's problematic for the society because the society will say, oh my God, they look just like us. They're actually just like us. We don't want to go and fight them, but you make them that they're part of this very strange religion. They dress very strangely. They don't believe like human beings, you know, and they definitely don't live, and they're willing to have their kids go out and get killed. Well, what kids want to get killed? Nobody wants to have their kids get killed. I mean, we could turn this around and say, oh my God, here in the United States, we have people sending their kids to go out and get killed for oil. You know what I mean? I mean, if they wanted to play the same game, they could play the same game. But that's not it. It's all power, and it's all who's going to determine that. And I think that, you know, even with this whole Iran thing, I kept saying to myself, I wish someone would stand up and say to those senators and those people that were all gung-ho about it, which of your kids are you sending to war? Do you remember the Iraq war? But the point is that these people that are voting to send other people's kids to war and playing with their lives, let them put themselves first and send their own kids to war. Don't send other people's kids to war.